Chapter 4, Emergency Secret Council, Part Trey. Right then it goes out on my phone. Just at that moment, two Skycraft fighter pilots came dashing into the hall, the scouts that Binder had sent out to investigate the crash. This was the one interruption Vantu had been expecting. Everyone turned to them as they stopped at Binder's side, breathing heavily. Seeming apprehensive, for some reason, they knelt at Binder's side and began to speak to him in whispers. "Speak aloud, Percy," Vantu ordered sternly, recognizing one of them, a Mahekian master pilot of some reputation. The king was no longer in the mood for formalities. "What have you seen? Speak." "Your Highness," Percy said, "we have just returned from the crash site. The Gogmars have just begun investigating it themselves. They did not see us, though of that we are certain. We detected no less than 24 small Skycraft fighters on our screens. We also detected, fleetingly, as if being blocked, an occasional reading much larger nearby. A reading that could be interpreted as a mega-hull warship, maybe two, but we could not pinpoint them. They must be cloaked somewhere in the nearby mountains." "Survivors?" "Unable to confirm. We could not get close enough. We could only just see the hull of the crashed Skycraft, but—" "Yes, Master Pilot," Vantu said. "Speak up." "The markings on this craft, sire. I've never seen a Skycraft quite like it. It's sleek and unusual. Futuristic, if I may be permitted to say. I've never seen a ship like it. And the markings, well, they say it's from Isle Mead." "Mead?" Jameson Day responded fearfully. "They are trying to reach me." Gasps and more whispers filled the room. Certainly the boy was who he said he was. He had to be. Even Binder, who was always cynical, seemed curiously persuadable now. Gabriel could scarcely breathe. "I see," Vantu replied. "Thank you, Percy. That will be all." The pilots bowed and departed quickly from the chamber. Vantu turned to the boy and lowered his head. "This is very awkward, and I apologize most sincerely, Your Highness. But I did not know. I could not know, especially with all that is going on." "I understand, wise king. I came most unexpectedly, not the way I had intended at all. I never knew that I and my family had become a myth to you here on the mainland. Your misgivings are no fault of your own. Yet, here I stand before you, laid bare, now awaiting your official response." "King Day," Vantu said with all humility, bowing. "I, King Tytel Vantu of Tugulin, am at your service, as are all my subjects, possessions, and power. They are yours to command. Yea, I am troubled by your presence here. Pray, please tell us why you have come here at this troubled time." The boy, King Day, continued to address the room. "I come by choice and by destiny," he decreed. "By absolute necessity. By duty. If you'll permit, I come to consult with your wizard, Dedlin Dane, post-haste, over matters and mysteries and nearly forgotten secrets hidden ages ago, when the deeds of war were passed down not by pen and scroll, but by fireside tales, from father to son to son. And to consult with you as well, Your Highness, for I also need your wisdom and guidance." Vantu looked at the wizard standing nearby, bent and frail looking. "Consider it done," he said. "Dedlin has already made his intentions known to everyone here tonight. I grant him my permission to serve you as he will. May he serve you well, in any capacity you deem necessary. I also have other wizards. Younger and stronger should you desire. If you have come now to face the guardians in battle, I have legions of great warriors trained for combat. My army is at your disposal. I believe we have the best army in the kingdom of, well, Day, if you'll forgive me, and a fleet of the finest warships ever constructed. Day nodded, gratefully acknowledging his generosity. Soon it may be necessary to enlist the aid of these fine warriors, but thankfully, not yet. I seek only quiet counsel with Dedlin, with your kingship, and with Prince Gabriel. Now, in more private chambers, I believe that you have handled the rest of your business here tonight more than effectively. I apologize for appearing to you so abruptly here today, members of this great council. Day then said boldly to the rest of the Tungulinians, and as I said, this was never my intended course of introduction. I had planned to make my presence known here differently, with a bit more pomp and ceremony, but what's done is done. Under the circumstances, it could not be helped. Perhaps for the best, too. Please forgive me now, but leave me to your king for the rest of the evening. The members of the council, still in mild state of shock, squirmed a bit, still staring wide-eyed, hesitant to move, not sure if they had been properly dismissed or not. They looked to King Bantu for guidance. Yes, thank you, everyone, Bantu said, addressing his exasperated audience to their relief. I'm sure you're as overwhelmed with all of this as I am. Obey your king tonight and go home. Please, go and await your orders. I will brief you again in the morning, and before you depart, a warning. Not a word about these events to anyone. Even mentioning it to your wives or husbands or friends or sisters or brothers will be immediate cause for dismissal from the council and grounds for punishment. Consider yourself warned. Consider yourselves personally sequestered. He turned to signal his sentinel to close the secret council. This meeting is hereby adjourned. Now, good night. Sleep if you can. Everyone reluctantly complied. They wanted to see more. They wanted to hear more. They mumbled their thoughts and concerns quietly to one another, gawking in awe at the young king as they stood and filed out. Saber Johnhausen seemed particularly interested in the boy. He stared at him grimly, frowning as he departed. Gabriel did not like the way he looked at his young friend. Bantu turned and addressed Benjamin Binder. Go now, Commander. Be careful. I await your report, he said. Especially now that we know the origin of this craft. This event may have an even greater significance than we first imagined. I will take Drer Freygood with me by your leave. Agreed. And one other. I will go, Gabriel volunteered. I know the land. I've dealt with Gogbors. I cannot permit it, King Bantu said. You are both a guest and a diplomat here. You are not entirely healed, Day agreed. You were badly injured. What good would you be to them should things go awry? Do not be a hindrance to this search party, Gabriel. Pray come to council with King Bantu and I, so that you may now learn all it is that you have desired to know. Then I will go, Dedlin Dane said. My personal skycraft is close by and ready for departure. And it wouldn't hurt to have someone along with a bit of magic, just in case. Binder straightened up, rigidly erect, obviously in protest. Agreed, Bantu said. You've taught me a lesson tonight, old man. I will think twice before ever doubting you again. Dedlin nodded. Dedlin, Day said, coming toward him, perhaps you should not go. We have not yet spoken, and it is you that I have come here to find. I seek your valuable counsel. I need your expertise. The wizard smiled. "Fear not, your highness. I already have everything in order for you," he said. "Trust me." Then he leaned over and whispered something into Day's ear. Just a few quick words. The boy's repose diminished, and he then blushed from neck to forehead. They smiled knowingly at one another. Then the wizard spun on his heels. "We're off," he said in high spirits, and exited the room. Hot on Benjen, Binder, and Drer Fregood's trail. This left only Prince Gabriel, a flustered King Bantu, and the young King Day in the great hall of the council. The echoes of the retreating footsteps made the room feel ominous and hollow. Gabriel sat down next to young King Day, and they smiled at each other. "So," Gabriel said. "So," said the boy. "Shall I call you Jameson now? King Day?" "Whatever you're comfortable with, Gabriel. Day is acceptable." "Day," Gabriel said, nodding pleasantly. "Devlin seemed rather giddy for one so entangled in such a dark fate," he said. "What exactly did he whisper in your ear before he left? It definitely had an effect on you. I don't think I've ever seen you blush before." "Nothing," Day said, blushing again instantaneously. He touched his fingers to his heart, smiling somewhat distantly as if something both personal and painful had been revealed and eliminated all in one quick stroke. "Wizards," he dismissed pensively. All right, the next part. Gabriel tried to recall what he could about the old stories, or the original superstitions, as he used to call them privately to his friends, the ones concerning the founders and first rulers of the continent, but found that he retained very little from his school days. Just bits and pieces. He remembered only this. If the legend held true, then this boy was a direct descendant of one of the long-lived first beings created after the great flood that destroyed nearly all life thousands and thousands of years ago, before written history. The first Day was supposedly the originator of the world as they now knew it, being chosen as righteous and fair by even greater gods, and given 5 great powers to use at his discretion, although what they were exactly had slipped Gabriel's mind. There were creation and time, he remembered, and utter destruction, but that was all he could muster from the cobwebs in his brain. Gabriel also recalled another being created after the flood by other gods, Gilgahar, the devil, who was granted the same 5 powers. There were wars and conflicts as both Day and Gilgahar recreated the new emerging world as they had been instructed to do. In its most simplistic and idealistic explanation, the purists believe that Day created mostly good things, animals, trees, and plants, while Gilgahar spent his talents creating evil creatures and mutations of Day's good creatures. An effort to institute some kind of universal natural balance. It was a constant competition between them that went on and off and off and on for centuries. Others believed that neither of them were truly good or evil. They were just 2 monumental powers locked in godlike combat. Finally, after more than a millennium of struggle, Gilgahar was eventually defeated once and for all. Unable to kill Gilgahar outright, since Gilgahar was created by a greater god than he, Day imprisoned him under the sea to the south of Garn, which was thereafter called the Sea of Death, to await judgment or release or rehabilitation from the original gods when they someday returned, if ever. It was at that time that the desire to become human became too great. Over love, Gabriel seemed to remember, the first Day relinquished his 5 great powers into small stones to be kept safely hidden should he ever need them again. He then became as an ageless, immortal human, supposedly to live out eternity as a normal, powerless, yet spiritually fulfilled man. And he was named King of the Continent. He married soon thereafter and had an offspring, a son. Then shortly after, something went wrong, and immortal or not, he somehow died. Gabriel's recollections of that part of the tale was unclear. There were a few things about all this in his memory that he couldn't quite remember correctly. But before his death, King Day built his great watchtower palace on the distant island of Mead in the ocean he had named the White Sea, and for countless generations his family dwelled there in peace, watching over the kingdom continent of Day omnipotently, or something like that. After Gilgahar's demise, there were other wars as different breeds fought for dominance around the continent. The Garnians continued fighting, and for another 300 years, the Lesser War continued, until the mysterious, pacifistic Mahekians arose from quiet obscurity to unite in war, which then tilted the table in the direction of all good men. The Garnians were finally defeated and banned from all lands but their southern domain. This war, unlike the stories of Day's family history, was substantiated historically in numerous written accounts, and it was much more realistic and believable to historians and rational thinkers. There had been another round of rumors from the religious friends a few years back that had circulated around the kingdom that King Mikhail Nikolaus Day and his queen, who would be this boy's father and mother, had both passed away from some strange sickness, as had all their predecessors before them. Gabriel had just figured that this was part of the same ongoing fairy tale kept alive by the pious fanatics who wanted to believe that the kingdom continent indeed was ruled by a just, all-knowing, omnipresent king somewhere too far away to substantiate or disprove. Unfortunately, that was the extent of Gabriel's limited knowledge. He walked quietly in tow, but behind the two kings, trying hard to remember more. The king's personal chambers were dark. It only took a moment, however, for the pages to light up row upon row of candles around the perimeter of the circular meditation suite. Gabriel tossed some new wood on the fire in the center hearth, and it blazed up like dried summer grass, golden and warm. As soon as Vantu waved his hand, the pages scurried from the room. Outside the windows, the great fireworks continued going off over the river. The colors were vivid and breathtaking upon the smooth surface of the dark water. Young King Day sat near the balcony and asked the other two to join him there. Let us now relax for a brief respite while I finish my tale and make my request of you ere I depart again. Depart? So soon? You just arrived. Is it not possible to remain here for a time and recuperate after your long travels? Asked the old king, pouring some red wine into goblets. I have many noble warriors who would take any dreadful chore from you. Day shook his head. It's not that simple. I fear this first quest will only be the beginning of a long and harrowing road that lies ahead of me. It is merely opening a door to what inevitably lies ahead. Beyond this. I can go in your stead, Gabriel offered. What can you do that I cannot? Give me your quest and remain here safe. Thank you, but that is impossible, Gabriel, for I am the heir of the kingdom of Day, not you. I am the stone bearer. No other can be. Or rather, I soon shall be if we are successful. I am being pursued as much for what I seek as for who I am. The stones, Gabriel muttered, remembering the old stories. You seek the stones. Yes, but just one stone for now. At least at first. Then we'll see. A quest now begins to take shape. Yes, but it is actually more of a race than a quest, and not just with the Guardians. It may be true that they are your foremost concern presently, but they are not but foot henchmen to the one who has now returned in the south and will soon follow if he can. He who lost all, but now seeks to regain what he once deemed was his all along. Our world. Now, here within this safe haven, I will tell you this. I will never be left alone and unsearched for, no matter where I hold up, even in this mighty fortress, because he and his agents are coming for me and for the stones I now seek. He knows that it is only I and my lineage who can reclaim the power from them. That is all he now fears, this reunion. You speak of Gil-Galad? Tytel Vantu asked. At every mention of that dark name, the lights in the room seemed to mysteriously dim. The air seemed somehow thicker and smoky. The Dark One of old has surely returned, the same my forefathers banned from the world so long ago to await judgment. Yes, it is he, the Ancient One, the Black Tyrant, who has risen from the sea of death and now resides in the walled fortresses of deepest Garn once again, slowly recovering and regaining his focus and strength. Long has he waited. How long ago he came creeping up from the depths of that murky sea, no one is for certain. But his return was foretold by many, and now the greatest seers have all agreed that this horrid prophecy has come to pass. Gil-Galad has indeed risen, and so his 5 great powers of darkness are emerging again with him. Sleepless and tireless, he is fashioning them and honing them to his will as we sit here tonight. He grows stronger every day, and he is ever angry and vengeful. Gil-Galad, Gabriel whispered, seeing more and more signs of him and his agents. My counselors concluded that time was of the essence and bade me depart hastily and clandestinely before Meade could be sought out and destroyed. He has begun to send out assassins and legions of evil soldiers, infiltrating every castle city on the continent to both hunt me down and to seek and destroy what it is that I now seek. Even now, armies and dark creatures search high and low for the stones of power. Perhaps Garowin and the Gogmors are already under his command. Perhaps there are traitors within these very walls. This is the reason for the strange feelings and uneasy dreams I have been having. I feel in my heart it is so, Vantu said. The key that I have entrusted to you, Gabriel, is integral to releasing the first stone, which awaits discovery, the scholars believe, somewhere in a secretive cave. This will initiate the mystical link between me and my inheritance, or so the legends say. I will go with all haste to this place and pray that there is some truth to these ancient stories. We must believe, because certainly the enemy does. This is a vast land, Your Highness. Where does this cave lie? Gorn? Aof? Galgaraya? Well, that is where your wizard, Devlin Dane, comes into this story. It is said that he alone holds the knowledge to find this sacred place and the ancient words that will release the magic and powers within. If he could still remember them, Vantu mused under his breath with some concern. And from there, he asked, to the next stone, wherever that may be. It seems a task impossible, but hopefully not, Day replied sadly. Now that my identity has been compromised, I must leave immediately, because the news will travel like wildfire. Tomorrow, if at all possible, or as soon as I may be prepared. Of course, Vantu said politely, I will do all that I can do for you, but this is very sudden. I would realistically need a few days to prepare adequately for such a journey. I can perhaps prepare 10 legions by morning? No, no army, Day stated adamantly. Use them to protect this city. I'll contact the kings of all the great territories. We shall unite. There is none who could withstand the strength of many kings. Together we can surprise them at our borders. We can attack preemptively. Once the enemy detected a movement of that size, they would know that we know. Do not start this war prematurely, before the first stone has been found. To muster now would thwart all our plans, Day advised. Do have your armies prepared to fight right here when they are called upon, Vantu. While we prepare, we must appear unprepared. That is our only advantage, the appearance of ignorance and complacency. I understand, Vantu replied. Wise counsel. Yet you're not planning on traveling the continent alone. Only a handful will accompany me on this journey. 5 or 6, no more than 10. Secrecy will be our ally. Vantu nodded. As you wish. Before the end, the prophecies have predicted unprecedented forces shall arise, both against us and to our aid, from places we know and places we have never heard of, from all around the world. We shall put off that horrible day for as long as we're able. Gabriel saw despair in the boy's face. There were so many things he wanted to ask him, so many things he wanted to know, but all that would have to wait. We will prevail, he simply said in an attempt to comfort. When I left Meade nearly 3 months ago, Day said, his eyes staring distantly into some other world, some other time, there were 14 others from the palace alongside. We were so proud of this undertaking. We felt not only valiant, but essential, invincible. Unfortunately, we were quickly put to the test and proven wrong. We were all novices and no one was used to ranging the wilds. The way was not easy. At sea, a serpent haunted us for days. There were sea maids, as green as the algae that swirled beneath our boat, who stole onto the ship at night while we slept, and their cruel deeds are too horrible to retell. The incredible distance of bizarre navigation kept us at sea for a month and a half. The others, Gabriel asked, all gone, 7 at sea, the remainder after we began our trek across the mainland. The last 2 were killed by Habad, trying to protect me to the end just days before you and I met. A good crew, a great crew. Many of them were very close to me. Advisors, seers, a longtime family doctor. Only 3 of them had ever done any traveling, and like myself, none of them had ever been to the mainland, but they volunteered. They knew how important it was and were willing to make that supreme sacrifice. Little did they know how they would meet their end. They were very courageous, all of them. I am sorry. Well, they would be very happy seeing that I made it this far. There were many times when our situation looked grim and all seemed lost. So I will not reflect on them with sadness, but will try to remember their valor and be proud. They will not be forgotten. King Vantu cleared his throat. The Mahekians keep our stories of your family kindled, though most common folk do not believe them anymore. All searches for Meade have been fruitless. It has become a fable land that only children and religious folks speak of. Day glanced up at him. Detlin obviously believes. Well, as does Drer Freygood. I thought he was going to faint when you stepped out into the light, Gabriel said. The 3 of them laughed together. It was a merry sound and welcome. The conversation turned for a while to lighter subjects, and Gabriel joined King Vantu in another drink of wine. Day had a cup of cold mead instead. The king ordered up a tray of meats and cheeses and breads and desserts, which they devoured as they spoke. Outside the spectacular cacophony of fireworks continued to rain colorful bursts of fire across the skies. It sounded as though they were nearing the climax of the presentation. The king's crickets in their blackwood cages chirped loudly for several seconds, marking the lateness of the hour. Your chambers have been made ready, King Day. We all have a big day ahead of us tomorrow, and many plans to make before your departure. Please accept my offer of at least one night's peace. He acknowledged King Vantu with a tired nod. They rose to disband and head their separate ways. But before they had gotten too far, Day looked at the prince. And as for you? As for me, Gabriel said, shrugging, I'm sure you've made aware that I am planning to be married soon. That is a rumor circulating the kingdom, Day replied. I believe you are betrothed to a certain princess in Sicil, who is surely awaiting your anticipated arrival. King Tytel Vantu nodded. Well, the prince went on, now, as inconvenient as it may be to all those involved, and in light of tonight's many revelations, it appears that I just may have to postpone that event and rearrange my priorities. Now, he said. Yes? Yes. I have not made any request of you yet. There is no need to bother, Gabriel replied, because I will not be left behind, whether I am invited or not. Even injured, I will follow you across mountains, over seas, through deserts, even into the heart of darkest Garn. I would be like an unrelenting shadow. I will see this done, whether you like it or not. Your Highness. I'm sure that marriage ceremony will wait, King Vantu said. The princess may not, but I'm sure that your father and hers will understand in the long run. Vantu, I need a pilot and a good crew, a brave, loyal crew, and they must be, above all things, uncompromisingly trustworthy. I have a few in mind, the king said. I will dispatch them immediately, since I do not foresee any rest for me this night, and I will brief them myself personally. They will be ready to go when you are. The fireworks have ended, I believe, Gabriel said. You have brought dark tidings, King Day, and also some inspirational revelations, both of which will need some time to sink in. In the meantime, sleep well tonight, if you can, both of you, for this may be the last night of peaceful sleep we will all have for a long, long time to come. It's the end of chapter 4. Chapter 5, the tiger, will start tomorrow.